Thompson's there, Billy in. The goal, Chris Billy, Huddersfield Town. The most famous goal of Chris Billy's life.
Is this the moment for Lee Fowler? It is. Take your place in Division 2, Huddersfield Town.
Thank you.
Ruby and Steve Simonson's boots now. He's missed. Steve Simonson clears the frame of the goal and collapses in a heap of tears. Huddersfield Town are promoted.
Mustafa Schindler has a chance to write his name in Huddersfield Town legend. And he takes that chance!
Hello and welcome to the Andy Takes That Chance podcast. This week, the Terriers went into the land of the Chuckle Brothers, fuck it. Start that again. This is why we can't do it live anymore. I can't speak. Hello and welcome to the Andy Takes That Chance podcast. This week, the Terriers went into the land of the Chuckle Brothers, but come full time, no one was laughing as Rotherham stopped 9 successive defeats in a row, becoming 10 as the Terriers proved toothless in front of goal as Andre Breitenreiter's revolution stutters into the international break. And with me, your host, Matt Shaw, we have a man who never stutters. In fact, some say he never even takes a breath. It's Richard Kossi Kosmala, and a man who adds the coolness to the fire. It's Ian Killick. We good?
We're just about recovered from Saturday, mate. I think. Jesus.
Okay. I think before we get into things, I think just a word on Steve Smith. Steve Smith, the only Huddersfield-born manager to manage Huddersfield Town. He played for the club for 16 years and once again in 81. And saw a rise and fall in the 70s. He served as a chief scout, a coach, a youth coach, academy head of recruitment, and academy scout. It was simply one of the nicest human beings I'd ever met, and being in his presence was a bit of a pleasure. A really lovely man. So really sad news that hit us this week that Steve Smith has passed away, and my condolences to all his family and friends if anybody's listening. He was certainly one of a kind, and he'll be missed. Right, guys, we'll move on. This episode, as always, is sponsored by Magic Rock Brewing. You can use our code of AHTTC10 to get 10% off all of your online orders. Okay, right, let's get into Huddersfield Town versus game, many people said. There's a change for Town, Killer. A change for Town was at the back. Lee's out with an injury. In comes Radinho Balca. Town opted to play your favourite system, a back three, a 3-5-2. It was a 3-5-2 that I have to be honest didn't particularly like, as I felt we lacked creativity in the wide areas, especially. Radoni for me is more ineffectual as a number 10 than as an 8, and we had 2 wingers up front, and I will always die on the hill that Sorba Thomas should be wide and not up front. I will die on that hill. It didn't really feel like a side set up to really have intent to go at Rotherham for me, and it sort of felt like lose rather than to really go at them. Do you think that's fair?
I think if you look at what he's trying to go for here with Breitenreiter, and now I think a lot of people are kind of looking for Balca to come in for Lees. So if you're looking at man-for-man first 11, I think that's kind of what most people would have wanted. I know Lees didn't miss out from any, was he injured or real? I can't remember, but he obviously wasn't able to play, and that's why Balca stepped in. And it's other than that, it's the same setup as we went with against West Brom, isn't it? In the first half, and now, whilst it wasn't the most creative, and that first half against West Brom was probably one of the best halves we've had all season, it just looked like we couldn't create too much even in that, and we should have done better than we actually did in regards to creating chances and scoring goals. But I did kind of understand the setup, Matt, and I can't say from the moment we kicked off that it looked like we were looking for a draw and when we were set up not to lose. I don't think that was the case. I think what happened in the first 10-15 minutes kind of changed the formation and the approach into that. I thought we started pressing a little bit more than we finished in the last 80 minutes of the game. But I don't know. It felt like to me that even Town kind of expected to go into this game expecting Rotherham to be a little bit worse than they were, to offer a little bit less than they did. And then from the moment they hit the post, all of a sudden the kind of press that we had just totally changed, and the system became kind of a bit dross and boring, to be honest, to me. Well, I'm sure we'll break that down that a bit more, but I think the initial setup, the idea is let's do what we did against West Brom in that first half and try and replicate that. But then the first moment, Rotherham kind of threatened in a way that we didn't expect. We kind of changed, and it did look like that, Matt. It looked like Brighton writers said, right, let's just not lose this game. Let's see what we can do, but let's stay solid. And it did just change the entire play for everything for me.
Why do we have to play Ogden Kazuma in a game like that? I just don't get it. I just don't get it. Why? I get it against West Brom. I don't get it. Like, it just makes no sense. Like, it just, honestly, when you see that Kazuma effort where he just like barely chuckled that shot he had at that as well. We're just so desperate. We've just got no midfield at all. Anyone decent now, it could send us down that, you know, just the crapness of midfield, the creativity. It's just absolutely zilch, man. Honestly, when I saw Ogden Kazuma, I just thought, Jesus, what are we coming here to do?
We've got something lined up a bit later, haven't we, for the passing, if you like. So Rotherham obviously had the early chance where Rinomhota hit the post and Charlie Wyke put the rebound over with Matty Pearson. But after that, Rotherham did nothing. Town just weren't really at their fluid best and had a few half chances. There's Redoni on the spin. There's Radinho Balca's header. I think Kasumu has a shot from the edge of the box. All kind of like barely half chances. And the first half just drifted into a bit of a nothingness. But there was that one incident or flashpoint, shall we say, when David Kasumu goes down in the box under a challenge from Rinomhota. Referee books David Kasumu for diving. How did you see that incident, though, Cozzy? Did you think at the time when you're in the away end it was a penalty? It might have been at the other end, actually. But what were your thoughts at the time? And then did they change when you saw it back on TV?
I didn't think it was a penalty, Matt, at the time. And I always, I've said it before, I always kind of think, what, from the ref's angle, you know, is it kind of a stonewaller? But again, as usual, you always get the text pretty quick, don't you, with people watching it. Oh, that's a definite penalty. You know, the outrage kind of text. So I'm thinking, wow, have I kind of not seen something that they have? And that as well. So luckily I can kind of watch it back straight away. So I did watch it back and that as well. And it probably was a penalty, Matt. But I honestly can't be mad that it weren't given, though. You know what I mean? It just wasn't. I think it's really weird. When I don't know if you watched the extended highlights. I watched them earlier, and it's just like that. It shows the final cut, the angle back, and the referee kind of he seems to be looking at it, but then this kind of a Rotherham guy just. It's hard to tell whether he just kind of goes past over his line, so he just could kind of see the foot going in, or whether he did see it before it going in. It was really difficult. So I couldn't be as outraged as everyone else, Matt. And I know people say, well, if it were VAR and Premier League and stuff, but I always think like, and I know whether it's not the right way to think, but can you see why he didn't give it? And I could, but obviously I didn't think he deserved the booking, but it was just, yeah, it wasn't one of those cheat moments where you like kind of whack the chair in front of that as well for me. But I just kind of took a view, Matt, that is, I know it's maybe not the point, but like, we've come with a team that's like won for like billions of years, and we're absolutely, we're you know, people getting mad about that. I'm just thinking there's other things to blame rather than that. But I suppose if it's a penalty, it's a penalty. Maybe Killer's got a different take on it.
Well, I thought.
I think these three. Sorry, Matt. I think there's three parts of it in there. Is it a penalty? If it is, or if it isn't, or if it's a dive, then at the end of it, like you said, Cozzy, and it's not a dive. I don't think he's dived. You can argue whether he's flopped a little bit, he left his leg down low to kind of facilitate that contact. Is it a penalty? Is it not a penalty? I think that's quite debatable. To get booked for it, though, to me was an absolute joke, and I can't see past that.
Yeah, I'm the same. I thought it was. I can accept it not being a penalty because it's very soft. You need to get shot to get a penalty. I don't like easy, soft penalties. I'll be honest. Soft penalty, but at the same time, to book him for that was ridiculous. The referee was absolutely shite all game and incredibly one-way. Let's be honest. There were numerous contentious decisions that he got wrong throughout the game. There's that corner where Town should have had a corner and he gave a goal kick. There's just so many easy decisions that he got wrong. I mean, it's not intentionally; he was just poor. But yeah, for me, I think it was right not to give a penalty, but to book him was ridiculous, and that was it. The first half, there's very little.
Yeah. The The only thing I'd say, Matt, is that I did wonder how much psychological damage that second half against West Brom would do this, because I wanted to convince myself this is a different game against a team that's poor. I did so many kind of preview games, people with Rotherham. Rotherham guy says, mate, you'll be 3-0, you'll win 3-0, it'll be easy. Our fans aren't turning up. No one's asked. Players are mutiny. Richardson, not playing what he should do. He's not throwing the kids in. Honestly, they painted a picture, and part of you thinking, well, this is Huddersfield Town, we'll go there, and it's going to be a tricky day. But honestly, I was buoyed with that. But I thought we were played with so much fear in the first half. That Radoni chance, Matt, when he kind of swiveled on that pirouette, he had so much more room. He could have took it in. I thought it would have a tame finish for what he had to do in that as well. And then we had other stuff where, like Bergsog, there were no real cutting edge or impetus. I know we've seen it before, but it just felt like a bit of fear. And good job, Charlie Wyke had the old Bradford shirt on there when he kind of blazed over. But it was just, I think Matty Pearson did a great job on that, Matt. If you look back on that, I think if Pearson hadn't kind of done his,
mentioned it,
yeah, I think it was huge on that as well. But I just kind of went into there thinking, wow, it's done us. I think that West Brom game has really affected us. The way we came into the game with the formation and the team, and the way we played, that people were anxious. And I get with a big game, and I get the pitch didn't look the best, but I kind of thought, wow, it's affected us last Sunday much more than I thought. I could be totally wrong, and a bad amateur psychologist, but yeah,
no,
when we went into the sheds at half time, and I think everyone else is talking the same thing. We're in big trouble here. Can we up the ante in the second half? And so come on, I think it got worse, did it?
Into the sheds, that's a problem. Yeah, so second half, I agree. I thought Town played with a lot of fear. And I think maybe the second half against West Brom did psychologically affect them. Maybe it didn't. But I just think I think there was a lot of pressure put on the match, because a lot of people were building it up as a must-win. We need to get something at Rotherham. Rotherham hadn't done anything for ages, and we just seem to play with a lot of fear. And this team has played a lot of fear in the past 3 years as well. They've struggled a lot to really be progressive at times, and we'll come on to passing, but really struggle on the ball in particular. And it's another game where we've had over 50% possession for a large percentage of it. And when we like me and Killer said the other week, when we have over 50% possession, we don't win because we don't know what to do with the ball. And again, it was a Rotherham just really sat deep and just went, do what you want to do. And that's where the hype. Rotherham are quite direct. They play a long ball. So if Rotherham are just kicking it down the pitch, then there's no point having two people pressing high up, because what are they going to do?
Mate, we're just a lack of quality. Sorry, just coming in there. There was one moment in the second half where Thomas was wide, and I totally agree with you, mate. I'm not a middle fan at all. I didn't get, especially when we've got some like decent forward options on the bench and that as well. Thomas had it wide, right? He put a ball in. Ben Wiles, who came on at half time, no anticipation for it. He didn't know what to do. It kind of spun past him and that as well. Came to Bergsog, who had an horrendous first touch, and then just kind of dinked it to keep it. And I just thought that is all our troubles just summed up there. Pretty much, we've got Sorba Thomas, who's produced some quality from the wing, which he's done all season, but he's finally got there. Then he went back in the middle. We've got Ben Wiles, who's seems to be shot to pieces. His confidence as well is, if he's like a goal scoring midfielder, we thought, I think Warnock said he wanted 10 goals out of him when he came, and Jesus, they hardly got any. And then Bergsog, you just don't know what you're going to. I just thought our woes were just summed up in that little move just after half time, and just lack of quality. They're just alarming, man. Both teams. It was a League One game, and it probably will be next season, mate. The whole place stunk of League One, mate.
Well, let's talk about the second half, Killer. And the previous 3 games against Rotherham have been refereed by my old mate Jeremy Simpson. Joshua Smith, like we've mentioned, had a horrible game. He was utterly atrocious, and Sorba Thomas's red card was the first real flashpoint in the second half. I mean, he's booked him for dissent, which you can see Sorba Thomas waving his arms around, going silly. He does that every week. He does live life on the edge, doesn't he, of a dissent booking every week. You can't tell what he said, so I can't argue against it. I mean, Morrison makes a lot of the free kick. It's a dive. But you see that every week, don't you? Week in, week out. Tommy Smith used to do it every week for Town, back, and we all used to cheer. So, it's just part of the game. The second to me is bollocks. There's less contact on Rathbone than there is on David Kasumu when he makes. I know he makes that challenge, and I'm not convinced he has to make that challenge either, because he's catching him for pace, and you feel like he could just wrap around, and there's people inside. But for me, it was just silly from Sorba. I think you have to look at Sorba and go, look, that's two silly moments, but there's absolutely no contact whatsoever on Rathbone. He's dived, and apparently afterwards he's winked as well and simulated. And it's just adds to the frustration of the game and the complete incompetence of the referee as well. What was your take on that? For me, it's silly from Sorba, and you can't really admonish that. But by the same token, bollocks. Go on, mate.
I think the entire, up until that moment, everything looked very desperate, right? It did. And from that first 10 minutes when we've changed because we think, hang on, Rotherham are here, they're a professional outfit. Okay, they're a League One side in all but name already. They can't really play football very much. They've lost 9 in a row. They don't want to lose 10 in a row. We're perfect for them because they know we cannot play football. So they're just going to sit back. You try and come and beat us, and we know we can't do that. They know we can't do it. Cardiff showed them exactly what to do. If you're not a great team, if you give us the ball, we won't break you down. We look desperate, and I think that kind of desperation and frustration boiled over to Sorba Thomas a little bit. That first one, Matt, it's a yellow card before his descent because he's grabbed the back of his shirt. He's chasing him back as the defender's running back towards goal, kind of shielding the ball up, and Sorba can't get there. And he has grabbed his shirt, and now it's light, it's soft, but that could have been a yellow card on its own. Then there's the descent. You can see him throwing his arm about. Is it 3 minutes or 4 minutes then between that incident and the second one? Yeah, he didn't kick. He might not have made contact, but he could have made contact. He didn't need to make that tackle. Heel is covering him. It's a stupid thing he's done second time round. It shouldn't have been a second yellow because, no, he didn't make the contact. It's a bit of an issue. I get it. But he's still somebody with a bit of intelligence, really, who's calm and in a situation that's comfortable, wouldn't make that challenge. But I think the entire team was rattled because they expected an easier game than what they got. And I think the fans did as well. I think that entire first half, like you say, half-time just changed everything. It's like, oh, hang on, there are a team here. The thing is, we can't beat anyone very easily because we're not a team that dominates possession and dominates games. We hit on the counter and we hit fast. Rotherham just aren't a team that kind of concede goals that way. They're saying you can have the ball, but you've got to try and break us down. They defended so narrow. They've had a couple of 5-0 defeats, I think, recently, or they've conceded so many goals in the last 9.
5-0, yeah.
That's where it is. And you can tell their mindset is, right, let's go out. We're already going down. Let's play for pride, but let's not concede this week. So they were always going to stay narrow. And we can't deal with that. And then in these moments, and the same thing happened in the Leeds game where we've left 2 points on the pitch. To me, I think we probably would have been okay in that second half. I've heard other podcasts and everybody talking about on Twitter and down at the Mac and stuff in that we weren't great in that first half. So we wouldn't have been great in the second and 11 with 11 players on the field. Maybe not. Maybe we wouldn't have been. But as soon as Sorba Thomas gets that red card, the entire impetus of Brighton Writer's approach to the game kind of changes. And we're definitely not going to be taking 3 points home from something stupid in my mind that Sorba Thomas didn't have to do. And I don't think he would have done it if it wouldn't have been on the back of what happened in that first half. But to me, Matt, I understand why it was a red card because he lost his head a little bit. And this is those fine margins that over the course of a season add up. We had Johnny Ogg, captain, elbowing somebody in the face against Leeds. And if you don't do that, I genuinely think we walk away with 3 points in that game as well. We could have left here in the last 5 games, 4 points on the field, which I will play a huge role in whether we stay up or go down at the end of the season. You cannot make stupid errors like that when you're a team like we are. They weren't massive, grave errors, but just a little bit of sensibility here. And that second half's a different game. Unfortunately, Sorba's done what he's done, and it's just changed everything. And I think we'll come back and be talking about this and these kind of moments at the end of the season.
Killer, this is so right. This is what relegation teams do, mate. It's just ridiculous. This is all what happens when you get relegated. You make bad decisions. Thomas Van Aken I think he just lost his head from that shout before. I think when you look at that foot race and that as well, Headley came back, probably would have covered an actual Bergsog's busting the gut to get back. But Thomas is like, I'm going to get there. I'm going to take him. You know, I just think he'd got the red mist, mate, and that as well. And what no one's mentioning here, he misses Coventry. That's massive. It's absolutely massive. You know, his key man there is out, and he's just like you said, Killer, just like panic, just seems to be just red mist and, you know, indiscipline and that as well. This is what's costing us, you know, big time and that as well. And I thought Johnny have got kind of an easy ride after the Leeds game, but to me, that 2 points were cost. I think we might have held on there and that as well. And I think on Saturday, I don't think there was any evidence though that you just don't know, how the game would go. But like I said, Brighton Wright kind of took his bat and ball home after that as well. The one thing that really frustrated me, Sean Morrison, his legs have totally gone. So why not put Pat Jones on, who's fast, and smash some long balls up and go past him and that as well? We were nothing. We give Morrison the easiest time of his life. He proper old man does any time. What he it was embarrassing with that. He did grab out of his shirt and stuff as well, but it happened further on in the game where he was just holding and tugging, and I'm just thinking, play some with some pace. And I'm looking at the bench, but obviously all the chances were coming to Brighton Wright, and none of them were happening. He just felt such a missed opportunity killer, and it's interesting how some people have kind of looked at it and thought, well, we'll have, obviously he's took the view, we'll have what we've got, and we'll take that job. But maybe he's right. Who's to know at the end? Liam Wadshaw put an interesting thing on, didn't he, where he were just imagine if we'd have lost that, you were bad enough on Saturday, the vitriol, and to have a point. So I cannot see why he didn't do anything, but it was just nuts. I just thought Morrison, it made me sad because I wished he'd signed for Town back after that playoff. I still love him from that penalty, because when you think Alan Lee and that other guy that we had with Sheffield Wednesday, missed all the penalties, and Miller, that's him. He's slotted it in, but he was just, you can see why they've conceded so many goals on that, but we got the one we know when it pace. It's just
I mean, Bergzorg and Thomas have pace, mate. Bergzorg's rapid. They were both up front. They were just sat deep. That was the problem. There's no space to go behind them, and that's where Town struggle when teams sit deep. Bergzorg's every bit as fast as
his bench were good, Matt. He had game changes and pace and stuff like that as well. I mean, I'm probably going to come on in a bit and make you.
Yeah, I mean, Andre Brighton Wright has took a lot of a stick, didn't he, after the game on social media, on the forums, and also in the stands, Cozzy. Town obviously with 10 men, and they really sort of played it safe, if you like. I think the real sort of flashpoint which seemed to anger a lot of people in the crowd were when Brodie Spencer went off injured. I mean, there's only 2 minutes left, and Tom Edwards comes on instead of something a bit braver. Was he right to sort of take that stick? There were chants for Danny Ward and Josh Karoma, which you don't usually get, do you? I mean, you don't usually get that. I mean, after the game, he said we'd controlled the game and played well. I felt, to be honest, I felt like he's trying to do a bit of a Sir Alex Ferguson and take the pressure off the players, because I think mentally, they look rattled. Like Killer said, they look rattled all game. Did the players? They look really edgy. They look nervous. And the problem is when you can't pass a ball, there's no calmness. There's no one injecting calmness in there either on the ball to just settle things down. Brighton Wright praised them in public. Maybe he has a go at them behind closed doors, or maybe he has a different take. You know what I mean? So we've seen what happens with these bunch of players as well. If they get criticised in public, the bat and ball goes home, doesn't it? But like I say, to me, they look really edgy. And again, you look back at after we went down to 10 men, is it a case of must not lose rather than must not win? And I had the Leon Wobshaw comment as well, Cozzy, about what would have happened if we'd have lost this game. Would that have finished this group of players off completely, especially going into what's now an international break with no game for 2 weeks, and you sat there stewing on this as well.
What is it? Something to build on, Matt, at this point. And we're still in the bottom 3 despite some dickhead tweeting out that we were out of it on the Saturday night. Cheers. By
the way, for those people asking who tweeted that stupid thing on the Takes That Chance account, it was Mr. Kosmala.
Well, I'll tell you what happened, right? I stood next to Pause, and I said, Pause, because I couldn't be asked to look at Silver.
You didn't do your research, Cozzy. That's
it.
It's the same thing every time. No research.
I trusted the odds. I know I should have looked at it, but I said, Pause. What happens if we get? Because Rotherham and Scobber were really good at coming up with goal flashes, this, that, and the other. I said, if it stays like this, we're out bottom 3. I said, that's something at least. And I didn't even check, but we never trust the ginger, mate. Yeah, but obviously the fan rage was so mad that everyone, I was proper getting him at the public. That's twice in 2 matches, Matt, that I've tweeted some shockers. But
I love it how Brady's got caught in the crossfire there as well, hasn't he? You can't be not trusting gingers. You've upset both of them. Right, where was I?
We were just talking about gambling and do we kind of go for the The only thing I'd say is, Matt, I think you've got to take the opposition into account, and they were so poor that I just didn't think. I thought the risk. The only thing coming into the game, Matt, which worried me, I suppose you're not going to get managers saying, but he said he would put to him, this is a must-win game, Andre, and he was saying, no, it's not. It's not a final. And the way we kind of petered out and kind of set up, it was almost like he didn't feel that we had to win the game, where I thought we did. And you know, obviously the numerical disadvantage.
Just to finish my point, there were just some things that, you know, that this Rotherham team is possibly the worst in living memory in the Championship. You know, they're on 20 points now. They lost, like, say, 9 in a row, not one since October. Just been turned over 5-0 in the last time out. And the 3-5-2, okay, like we mentioned, Sorba and Bergzorg can do the high press, but like I say, they weren't really needed. But I just felt like if you'd had a proper striker on the pitch at some point, someone who just stands on the penalty box, it would have made such a difference, especially when we had 11 men. You know, Bergzorg and Thomas, they both prefer to be outside of the penalty area, and it's not a good. It's okay if you don't have the ball and you're pressing high for 75% of the game, but when you've got the ball, the two of them up front are just so poorly matched when you're in possession, and I just felt it needed either a Bojan Radulovic or a Danny Ward just to stand in the box. And I mean, we can talk about Bojan's tweet, which I don't think it was more innocuous than anything malicious, I think. But at first, I think everybody was like, "Oh, he's going in," but he wasn't really. He was just correcting the reason why he wasn't playing. But for me, I thought we'd have won that game if we'd have had a striker on the pitch from the start, and I just felt Rotherham were appalling, and they proved to be appalling. But I suppose the other question as well is when you've got a striker on the pitch, who's going to give him the ball? But you know, but like you said, Cosy, that flash point where Bergzorg puts it over, where there's people stood on the heels. If you've got a Healy or a Radulovic or a Danny Ward in the box at that point, is it different? We'll never know because the game finished 0-0. But I just felt that maybe he got that wrong. And I would have preferred to see Sorba Thomas at wing-back where he can cause some damage. I know there's an issue whereby he can get caught behind. You can get in behind Sorba Thomas if he plays at wing-back. But you put someone like Radinho Balca behind him and then, Brody Spencer, and, you know, that threat diminishes somewhat. So I just felt there were a couple of things there where it's the first time really I've looked at a Brighton Writer set up and gone, I don't really like that. And then through the game, he's been really good at changing things and trying, you know, positive things to win the game. And it's the first time really he's taken a bit of flack, isn't it, for not actually trying to chase the game and win the game. And someone said in the comments of Twitter earlier said, what's the difference between, you know, why are we down to 10 men against Leeds, you know, who are absolutely flying at the top of the league, and we're trying to win the game in the last seconds, but against Rotherham, who've not, you know, won since 1932. Are we happy to play for a draw? And I thought it was a decent point. What's changed? And maybe some of the criticisms fair, but it's one of these, cause in it at the end of the season, we'll be able to tell if this is a good point or not, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, it's like what's changed. Maybe that West Brom game has changed it, but it's interesting that I was just watching you'll be shocked to know, watching Spanish football. There was a coach who would.
Are you watching football while you're podcasting again?
No, I'm not. But like the manager on the day, they'd won later on. His team had won up with a game, but basically we're chucking guys on and they won. And his point was, it's massive coming in an international break that we go into there with a smile on our face. That was his quote and translation. Yeah. He was smiling on our face. I just thought that was huge. I just thought, I mean, obviously we can look back on this point, who knows, but I just felt that I don't think there's anything built on. Everyone's got a miserable face. The fan base are raging. We couldn't be playing a worse team, I think, on Good Friday, who just had the time of their lives at Wolves. And I don't think that'll mean they'll have their mind up. They'll be like semi-final, grabs spots for places. So Coventry are going to come in rude health. I just think we needed to go in with something, Matt. And I just thought it was worth the gamble to try and win the game, just seeing what they'd gone. But, you know, even 11v11, Matt, I don't think there was much evidence on there to say that we'd won the game. But, you know, as a fan, you know, like you said, Killer, when you were, you know, looking back when we look back on these moments, Thomas was setting up, but I just got a bad feeling that we're going to look back on this in May thinking, God, you know, when we were at Rotherham, when we went, you know, when they were absolutely dire, we could have like tried to win the game. But it's a great point, Matt, what they were mentioning about the Leeds thing. What is the difference really on that as well? It's got into my head as all this last couple of days, and it just, everything just feels like it's heading in one way at the moment. And obviously we'll come on later on with some of the other stuff, but I was so down on Saturday night, man.
The thing is, though, Cosy, our team, we're so one-dimensional. We've got very few dimensions. You look at Leeds, you can play loads of different ways. They've got options. We can kind of counter it fast on the counter, or we can do nothing. We've got no other option. Leeds, we could play that way because they were having a go. They were having a go. Rotherham were never going to do that. I understand the idea that West Brom first half worked, so we're going to try and do the same thing. I get that, but for me, I wouldn't have done it that way. Rotherham were always going to sit deep. I'm like you. I'd have had a bona fide number 9 starting up front. I would have gone with my back 4. I don't think you need to commit 5 guys in defence against a team like Rotherham. I think the entire setup was wrong. I understand the logic and why he did it, but I just don't like it. Especially after that first 10 minutes, we changed everything. At half time, I'd have made the change. Nobody can argue, though, for me, that Brighton Wrighter wasn't happy to take a point there. And that's why he kept everybody on the pitch. I understand if that's his mindset, which it clearly was, why you don't take players off, because the game settled down. We were playing with a man less. It's a little bit egotistical to sit here and say, well, it's still only Rotherham, so we should still be able to beat him. No, they're a professional football team. And now any professional football team can sit back and defend pretty well and only lose games, even if it's like everyone bar Man City 1-0, 2-0 or whatever, and they've got them on extra, right? So it is a tough challenge, regardless of how good you are against a poorer team, even if they've got an extra man, but they're going to sit in, right? To win that game with 10 men is difficult. But Brighton Wrighter knew the game had settled down. He knew if he didn't make any changes, the guys that were on would have taken that point. That was his aim, clearly, from the moment Sorba Thomas got sent off. We can argue whether that was the right thing to do or the wrong thing to do, but that's definitely what he went with and why we went with no substitutions. There were options on the bench for me. Would I have twisted personally? I don't know either. As we've mentioned, the players are so fragile. It's all right saying here we didn't win. What if we would have won? But if we'd have lost that game, like you say, because if we'd have got into this international break, having lost this game, a game that everybody kind of expected us, and they did really expect us to win this game. And that was kind of the do you know what this feels like, this game? This, to me, feels like when we drew against QPR away from home. Everything was on that game. We had to win that game. We had to win that game. We didn't. Darren Moore walked after it. Well, was told to walk kind of after it. It feels like that now again, doesn't it? And until we beat Sheffield Wednesday, everyone were like, oh, we're awful, we're going down, we've got no chance.
I just think this killer, us still being in the bottom 3, even though this dickhead here tweeted that we won, I think that's massively part of it. I know it.
Because that were a huge issue last week against West Brom. That you could see it play out then. That's the first time we had to face it.
Still in there
and
now
we folded. And will we come out of it again? That is the big question. And I just think Brighton Wright has sat there at 50 minutes, 51 minutes when Sorba's got sent off, thinking, right, we can't lose this game. We're mentally on the edge here. We need to have something to hold on to. You can tell to the players, well, boys, against Leeds, we managed it half a game, came out with a point. Rotherham, manless again, half a game, came away with a point and a clean sheet. We've got things we can build on here, because obviously over these next 2 weeks, he's going to be working on possession and us being on the ball, because that's the way he wants us to play. And we'll probably look quite different, I think. Maybe not in lineup, maybe not in structure, but how we play, how we try and play going forward. I think we're going to look quite different against Coventry. But it just feels like we've mentioned that this is a huge turning point to how the season ends, and we'll only know about it at 46 games. But Brighton Wrighter set out for that point as soon as Sorba Thomas got that red card, and that's why no changes were made. Would we have gone with it? I'm not entirely sure, but I understand the logic behind that side of it anyway.
Matt, I would argue, this is going to sound insane, that Sheffield Wednesday losing 6-0 Ipswich will do less psychological damage to their team and their rest of their season than us getting a point at Rotherham. And we've got a point more than them, and their goal difference took a battering. But I think Danny will be like, bollocks to that. We know we can go again. I think
there's method to your madness there. I think you can look at Ipswich and write that off as a free hit.
I just think it's been in the bottom 3 still, even though obviously I said that we won't. I think it'd been so different to me if we got that point and we'd have been above it. Bottom line, I know it's about how we end, but I just don't like us sitting in there for another 2 weeks. That's fan base stewing, and just again, they look so tricky games to me. Them now, Coventry and Stoke, where I just think if we'd have bundled something in and won later on, or just even. I don't think
what we really need is a crap team coming at us. That's what a crap, slow team to try and attack us. That's what we need. That's essentially what we need. And
what do we need?
I mean, I look at the Birmingham game and think that's winnable. But then I look at the Coventry game and I go, oh, no, not sure about that. And then the Stoke game, Stoke are quite, again, sit in and hit long balls. So, again, that's not made for us either. So, those 2 games, if we lose both those games over Easter, we are absolutely too bad. But then we've got Swansea, Birmingham, and someone else at home, don't we? We've got 3, Millwall. So we've got those 3 games, and Millwall will sit deep as well and frustrate us. So
Don't you think, Matt?
We need to find a different way to break these teams down over this international break.
Don't you think, though, guys? It's a mental thing. Sheffield Wednesday, they were down in October. They were finished League One. They'd already getting a season card for League One. Done, finished. Cisco crap. Roll comes in. QPR. I don't know if they were done, but it's just like we've always. It's kind of weird. I don't know if you've seen that thing today. EFL put out because obviously they won't give them any ammunition, but obviously Leeds was 17 behind. Leicester won the New Year's Day and blah blah blah. But I wasn't looking at that bit of the table. I just looked at us. We were just above that bottom line by about 2 points above it. So it's just like nothing just changes there, but it's just so frustrating, man.
Because there's one comment from Dean Smith. It says, "Why are we starting 8 defensive players against a team that has conceded 77 goals? Keeper, 5 at the back, and 2 defensively minded midfielders, and we wonder why we don't create anything." When I saw the team sheet pre-game, I said to my lads, "That is going to end 0-0," and that's similar to what you said.
Matt, I think this is the most offensive bench we've had. I mean, take Edwards out. I think you could argue, as well. Everything else is like even Diarra. I mean, not made much impact. Maybe clutching a bit there, but I just looked at that bench thinking like, wow, there's a lot to bring on there to change the game. But which makes you think when you look at what's on the pitch at the start, it's like you can't argue against it, Matt. And how it played out, it just is. It's fact, that thing, mate.
Yeah. Cozzy, you were quite candid before we went live about some of the fan behaviour, and Poz commented about some of the fan behaviour, and he was going to send me a voice note, and then he bottled it. What was it like in that away end? Because it sounded very frothy, shall we say, at the end, and I know you weren't overly impressed with bits, and I'll let you tell how much you want to say, but I mean, there's been a number of requests from the club for fans to behave themselves as well, hasn't there, recently? And it's been going on throughout the EFL, to be fair. I've seen quite a few up and down. But what was your away day experience like, Mr. Cosmo?
The one thing I'd like to put in here as well, I didn't want to really announce it, but I don't drink anymore. I've stopped drinking. So I think this has got quite a lot to do with it. So maybe when you're in the same mentality as some of these, when you've had a good drink or whatever, however you like to lose, your SHI team on Saturday, maybe you see stuff differently. But I'd always think I'd like well behaved. But he were awful, Matt. It's the first time I've ever had to move to another part of the ground. Luckily, obviously saw no messages. I says to pause, is there any room anywhere else? Because obviously we were sell out away end and that as well. But basically where I was, it's just like there was some people came in late and they were abusing the stewards. They were singing songs about Rotherham and vile songs, to be honest with you, and that as well. And well, that's football. No, it's not for me, because every town's got their own problems and that as well. You can only Google.
Just about to say every town has the village nonce. Is that what you're about to say?
No, every town's got their own problems. But I'm just thinking, why are you coming in with this kind of mentality? What's wrong with the champs for Huddersfield and stuff like that as well? And it was just horrible. Like I would just like groups around. Then there were women and child behind. So guys, I can't see the game. And some can't say, well, I bet you won at Cardiff for you and that as well. Like, we go every week. And I just thought, what's that got to do with it? It's like a woman's paid good money with a child to watch a game, and it's like getting all this abuse and that as well. This was horrible. And I was looking around, and they were like, yeah, I can kind of get, the atmosphere were pretty dire, because the football were dire. But at the end, when I was with Pod, it was quite interesting, really, because everyone's different out there. But the players, it was horrendous. Some of the stuff they were getting, it was vile abuse. I know Matty Pearson's had his moments, hadn't he, with the crowd and that as well. But I thought we were going to jump in, Matt, and have a go at people. To be fair, Pods, were like, come on, 8 games to go, Jack, we can still do it and stuff like that as well. But I remember I used it as a stick to beat more. Why would he come over to the fans? I said, you should always come over to the fans and that as well. But that was the first time on Saturday where I thought, why would you want to do that? Delano put that picture on my kind of X account, and he was just sat there looking with his hands, but the abuse were horrendous. But he was just like, I don't know, just like Poz was saying to me, just like, why does he give people just like the right to behave like absolute idiots, like when they go to football stadium? It's just so weird. And he was just an horrible act to do, Matt. And I've been a few of these, not just on the pitch, but it's just like when you can't really move anywhere in that first half, and you just have to kind of subject. I think he'd even put my earphones in, mate. We're that bad, like just listen to some music or stuff like that as well. It was just poor. But the club have been messaging this stuff out now for a few weeks now about fan behaviour, and as usual, there's always the comments underneath, slagging people off at the club and going back and that as well. But there's a reason they're putting it on, mate. And it's just like, just didn't enjoy the afternoon. I get footballs like not like going to the cinema and the theatre, and God, and like I said, maybe a lot of it's to do with because I'm not in the same zone anymore and that as well. I'm on 0% lager or what have you and that as well. But maybe a language a bit true. But it was just a hostile, horrible atmosphere, and you couldn't really do anything. And I'm just thinking, there's something wrong when a woman and a child can't like watch a game and they're getting like, abused by people that have come in 10 minutes late and like just can't stand up. It's just like, what's that about? And yeah, just pretty dismal to be honest with you, and that as well. Hopefully things will improve at Stoke, but I suppose the team's losing, Matt, and then we didn't win, and players are going to get it and that as well. But it would just no, it just honestly, I think sometimes we don't realise what the difference it can make, kind of psychologically and that as well, to do it. The one thing I do admire the Germans, and it's so bizarre, although obviously we tweeted that video out the other week where like the ultra leader came on and they were going nuts one with the team and that when Ingolstadt, I can't remember which team it was, but I watched Schalke get battered on Sunday on here, and but after the game, the team and the fans are like in one, but there's a split now, mate, at Huddersfield, and it's bad. But you know, Brighton might have had that. We're all on the same page. The Leeds, the atmosphere is electric, but it's turned quick again, and it needs to come back to be something like, because these next 2 games, if it goes wrong for us, we could be done. And shouldn't we do everything we can to get the lads over the line to encourage people, or have we just got to this stage now where everyone's fair game for abuse and that as well? It was just bad, really.
Yeah, people will always argue. It's usually the people that don't sing will always argue that the players need to give us something on the pitch before we can make some noise, and it works, but it does work both ways. But when a team is sort of like mentally struggling, which I think 1 or 2 of our players are at the minute, it does help when the crowd get behind them and push them on and roar them on. We've seen it happen loads. We've seen it happen at Huddersfield loads, where the crowd gets behind them and pushes them on. I know there's a lot of frustration, and it's just frustration of the last 4 or 5 years, isn't it? As much as anything boiling over rather than anything new. I mean, the stick Andre Brighton Wright is getting after 5 games. He's pretty stupid.
Oh, they'll call him shite, and right where I were, mate. Shite, right? And all this lot, yeah.
Yeah, it's stupid. I mean, he's managed 5 games and lost 2. It's not exactly lost 5 out of 5, is he?
I think the frustrating thing for me though, Matt, is like, how many different managers, was it 6 to 18 months or 7, 8 months? Do we realise it's not how many, you know, I'm getting on my app, Brian Wright's got a, I'm like, what, you want to change manager again? It's just like, all these managers can't all be crap, or maybe they can. What is going on here? It's just like,
well, you remember 12 months ago, there was some silly podcaster who'll remain nameless, Cozzy. Did say that Neil Warnock had lost it, and he wasn't going to get a tune out of these players either. And
yeah, I mean, that
was after like 3. That was after like the similar amount of games. These things just take time, don't they? And hopefully Brighton Writers. I like Brighton Writer so far. I think he makes a lot of sense in what he says, and hopefully he can find a way to get us out of this funk. But it definitely certainly needs the fans to try and push on a bit more. And I mean, at the end, come the end of the game, if you've given all you can in the stands and the players have let you down, I mean, booing, whatever, you know, I won't say that, you know, it's not something you should do. I mean, people pay money to go watch, and at the end of the game, if they've been shortchanged, then I mean, you can let them know, but just language wise, there's no need to say some things, you know, what people do. But I think we'll take a break there. We'll all calm down, keep cool heads, let cool heads prevail, and then we'll come back after the break. Right, so me and Cozzy shilling McDonald's. If you're listening on the on Acast there, and if you're listening on YouTube, you are spared of, or watching on YouTube, you're spared of me and Cozzy and Brady and Johnny going on about McDonald's. What terrible adverts were recorded for them, but they always reject the ones which are good, so we had to do the bad ones. So there we go. Right, so I just wanted to just add some flesh to the bones, really, because I've been on about for weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks, months and months, and probably 3 years now about how shit our passing is. And I just wanted to sort of like put that into context in some ways and just sort of explain why our passing's really shit. And
I find another teammate.
Well, from 5 yards, yeah. I mean, that is
that's it.
Our passing again on Saturday. Our passing again was absolutely diabolical once again. It's just So I've dug out some statistics for you boys. Huddersfield Town, where do you think they sit in terms of total of completed passes in this division? Where would you say Huddersfield Town sit?
21st. I'll go 21st.
Nope. Higher or lower, Cozzy?
I don't know. 23rd?
23rd is exactly right. So Huddersfield Town are the second worst team in the division for completed passes. Rotherham, obviously, are the worst. In terms of attempted passes, where do Huddersfield Town sit in the division again, Mr. Kosmala?
I'm going to go bottom this time, mate.
23rd again. Rotherham are still bottom. Yeah, and then again, in terms of completed as a percentage rate, so the second lowest completed pass rate is Huddersfield Town yet again in 23rd place, Rotherham are bottom. But the real sort of like kicker and the most annoying stat is that Huddersfield Town sit bottom of the championship and in terms of bottom of the top two divisions for the least progress made through passing. So in terms of distance with progressive passes, Huddersfield Town make the least progressive passes in the top two divisions of English football. And that is what pisses me off. And that is why I go mad about our passing every week. But there we have it. So Huddersfield Town cannot pass a ball. Water is wet, etc. I mean, if you've got any comments on that, you can go in. But I don't.
Matt, right? So it's not every footballer. I reckon you, me, and Cozzy, we could all knock a five-yard pass at next man. That's not the problem. That's kind of. It might look like that's the problem, but that's a symptom when the guy receiving it doesn't kind of do what he should. It's the next ball after that. I think that first pass is quite straightforward. Anyone can do that. But normally you watch other teams play and the first pass goes to the second receiver. And then after that, there's people already moving for kind of progressing the ball downfield. But the way we play it is very much like, right, Pearson's going to pass it to Ellick and then Ellick doesn't have a clue where it's going to go after that. It's like there's no long-term thinking about playing football.
No,
and I genuinely believe
there's no moving into space either.
Nothing. Midfielders, they don't seem to make those sideways moves. But then Kasumu and Hogg, is that their game? Is that what they do?
No, they sit deep, don't they?
Exactly. So you've got next to no midfield then that's going to work laterally to try and find spaces in those passing lanes. And honestly, defending against Town in midfield must be the easiest job in the Championship. It really must be because there is so little movement. Apart from, to be fair, Jack Rodoni. But that's why he looks so busy. He's everywhere and he's trying really hard. But then even when he does get it, then nobody else moves for him. It's like junior football is one of the most common things you'll see. Like somebody will make a pass and rather than then thinking, right, I'm going to move now to try and get the ball back again, they just stand there. Oh, what a glorious ball that was. Did you see that? That was amazing. It was what a pass that was. And there's just no movement off the ball for that second, third, fourth phase in a play going forward. And that's what drives me mental, Matt. It's that they just continuously we've had 3 managers this season, and every single one have had the same kind of problem in that there just doesn't seem to be anybody moving after the first guy's got it. But I think that is a problem when you're a team set up to just defend for 99% of the games in the season, and that's what we are, and that's what we've been. And I don't think you can expect Brighton to come in and to change it overnight. But that's what frustrates me about his approach as well, because he seems to still be trying it, even though all of us know we can't do it. We've not been able to do it for years and years and years. We haven't brought in players that can do that and offer that. I think Ben Wiles was the only one this year that's really come in with a bit of hope to try and help us dominate games and create chances going forward. But anyone can pass it 5 yards. But for some reason, Huddersfield Town have this great problem in being able to move off the ball, to create spaces. And we play so predictably that it makes it easier to defend against them. At 23rd in Championship for more or less every passing category is kind of embarrassing, isn't it, for a team that at the end of last season, the one looked pretty good, and we might not have had too many passes, but I imagine the statistics then would have been much better than they are now when it comes to progressive balls. But it's just that I don't know why we're not able to do it, but we just seem to have a massive inability to do so.
I think there's a panic about if they do move into space, there's a massive panic about what space they've left behind them, because we are.
Do you think that, Matt? Do you think that's a Darren Moore thing? Do you think that's because obviously we were so structured in defence off the ball, and as soon as we lost it, everyone kind of just ran back, got back into shape, and we went again.
I think it's a symptom of who plays in midfield and who can no longer run as quickly as what he used to, and therefore sits in a much deeper position and doesn't move into space. He who shall not be named, because I'll get pelters.
Is he painting outside of a?
It might be. I mean, I mean, there's an argument that you could put different players around him to affect that, but yeah. Right, boys. The next question is: are we shitting ourselves about relegation? I did a poll.
Yeah,
I did a poll earlier, and it says: are you more worried after Saturday, or still quite convinced we'll be able to get out of trouble? The options were calm, we'll be fine. Now worried, but we'll be okay. I was calm, but now I'm panicking. Or we're doomed. So full Captain Manring for those who've seen Dad's Army. Where do you two sit first before we go to the poll? Killer.
I'm shitting it. I'm shitting it now at this point. But beforehand, I thought we were okay. I did. I thought Brian Wright came in with his CV looking phenomenal. Johnny Worthington's got us playing some beautiful games where we looked a different team under him. We were always going to lose games because we're pressing so wide, but he's taking, I think he got 1.5 points per game. And now under Brian Wright, we're back down to 1 point per game, which is very similar to Darren Moore's 0.97 points per game. That's kind of where we're trending at the moment. I thought those days had gone. And then when you've seen the changes we're not making in games and playing like we did against Cardiff for the entire game and West Brom in that second half, I don't understand how somebody could not be worried about the way we're going, because it's not the performances like we've mentioned here. It's not just a technical performance. It's the mental frailty of a team. And the problem is, in my opinion, that's the biggest kind of predictor for a relegation that you can have in a football team. Do we have anybody at the club now who can step up and kind of get us past this mental frailty that we seem to have got from somewhere? I'm not entirely sure, but if somebody isn't worried, I'd be quite amazed to hear their explanation about it. So because he's going to say that now, then I look like a right idiot. But I just think from what I'm seeing anyway at the moment in these last 5 games in the Brighton Writer, I expected more. And all of a sudden, looking at the games coming up, like you say, some of these games don't look favourable for us. Don't look at where teams are in the division necessarily, but the style of football they play, they don't fit well with the only teams we can beat. And I'm worried. I'm worried.
Quasimodo?
Yeah, similar to that, mate. The Matters thing's just an head scratcher. Again, I'll keep going on about it and that as well, but it seems that chance conversation in that bar in Brighouse was spot on again. Not involved. Just he seems to me like he's made his decision on certain things and players, and he ain't budging on that as well, which is like we wanted to see a bit more gambling, and obviously we only did that Leeds podcast a few weeks ago. Our buzzing, wasn't it? The best thing about that, the corner when he sent Leeds and Pearson up and that as well. But yeah, definitely, Matt. Just I know that the club didn't say it was a must-win game, but it was for me on Saturday, and it was just it wasn't that we didn't win. It was just why we didn't win. It was just there were nothing there. There were no energy. There were no kind of gambling. There were players on the bench not sent on. It is a psychological thing, like Killer says, and I mentioned that earlier on about Sheffield Wednesday. I think then the next 2 games are Swansea or Middlesbrough. But I think the biggest thing for us is because how it's happened last year. I just felt we were down. We all thought we were down. There was no chance we were going to stay up, and obviously Warnock produced a miracle. But I think that's a different mindset. And the guys on the We Are Terriers thing going on about Dave, especially on about for a bit, but. I were buying into what he said, but once we're down there, it's going to be hard to come out of it, especially if we're down there. That's why Saturday was such a big thing, because it's like, be like 13 days till the Coventry game and that. So I just think, I just trying to imagine I'm a player, mate. You're just like, it's another season of like trying to battle against relegation. You're driving your car down Leeds Road, the windscreen wipers on, it's raining, you're turning right, you're like, here we go again. And it's just like, again, massive sways of opinion. I didn't hear many saying we were going to be all right on Saturday. A few either were finished and that as well. And I were like, I'm always, even though you won't believe it on this pod, I'm trying to think like glass half empty person myself. But it's like, I've been, it's just not good, is it really, mate? And that as well. But the only thing I'd say is like going down. It's really weird because I've heard some people, again, we've said it before, Matt, no, rebuild and all this bollocks. We don't want to go into League One, but I just, like when we went down again, obviously 2001 Birmingham, and obviously the Premier League when we deserved it, but I just feel like we deserve it in this, mate. We've made shocking managerial appointments. We've had a bad January transfer window with no impact and that as well. Maybe Healy can be the peak Cristiano Ronaldo when it comes back. That's the only thing I'm clinging on to, mate, to be honest. That Healy can be that man that can kind of fire us up, but just what you've said there about the passing stats, mate. Honestly, how can we argue if we go down? We can't. Can we?
I mean, teams usually finish where they deserve, don't they, in the end? But I'm usually quite pessimistic, but I think we'll scrape up. I do.
Come on, Matt. Convince us, mate.
Oh, Matt. Yeah, Matt. So apparently, Town are now third favourites to get relegated. All the supercomputers have us finishing third bottom. I think I still don't know what these supercomputers are. To be fair,
those supercomputers have had us finish third bottom all year, haven't they? All season.
No, I think we're targeting. Well, we're looking at 45 points on the supercomputer prediction. So what's that? Another 6 points. From now with the remaining 8 games, which even I feels a bit slim. I think we'll do a little bit better than that. But now everyone else is looking at us again, thinking, where are Town gonna be able to get enough points to avoid relegation here? Because Sheffield Wednesday this year are kind of what we were like last year, aren't they? They look done and dusted, far more than we were. But then Warnock came in and saved us, and now Rowe's kind of doing something similarly in a different style, absolutely. But they're kind of, to me, gonna win enough to crack on. I know they've got a tougher fixtures coming up, but at this point of the season, form is so important, isn't it? And we don't have it. And it seems to me, if you look around us, everybody else does.
I would say that Blackburn, Plymouth, and Birmingham are worse than us, and also in terms of form. And I think what gives me hope. I know our home form hasn't been great, has it? Really, this season in general terms. But I think we can beat Swansea and Birmingham. But we just need to find a way to beat Millwall and grab another point or two outside that, and I think it's doable. But we can't lose both games over Easter. I think if we do, I think we're cooked. But one win in those two, however it comes, and I think we'll be all right. It's just, but I think as well, we've got to learn about putting pressure on. We still haven't learned, have we, from the Cardiff game in the Premier League, to stop putting too much pressure on one game. Stop putting too much pressure on one game. We did it. We fall into that trap again with Rotherham. Stop doing it. Let's just keep going game by game and not putting pressure on it. But
I don't know about Matt, though. That just the stats put the pressure on us. I don't know about we.
Let's look at the poll results. 7.9% say calm, will be fine. 23.4 says I'm now worried, but we'll be okay. 45% say I was calm, now I'm panicking, which I think a lot of us are where we're at. And then 23.6% say we're doomed.
Matt, don't ask us if we're going to stay up, mate. Save that for next. Save that for the Stoke podcast, mate. Don't put me on the spot now, please.
I mean, no. I think we should just go game by game, Cozzy. I think we should stop putting too much pressure on the Stoke game and just go game by game. Well, let's just have a look at some of the questions that have come through on Twitter. We've got Gamer James, who says we have won back-to-back games just once this season, and our longest winning run is 2 games. Are you guys confident we can get points needed from the final 7 games? I think we've just pretty much covered that. He said final 7 games because he's not including Ipswich. I mean, Ipswich could be out of the automatic promotion race and finished in a position then, and they may change things, but I wouldn't bank on that at a certain point. But like I say, we've just covered that. I think we can do it. Cozzy refuses to commit, and I think Killer has reservations. I think we all have reservations as well, but I think we can maybe do it. Dean Smith says, shockingly baffling performance, which I didn't see coming, which is bizarre as our squad is terrible. Question, is this our worst squad in the last 15 years? I think it is. Years of shopping at Aldi, expecting Michelin star food has caught up with us. Dean Smith channeling his inner Stan Ternent there, isn't he? Champagne tastes on beer money.
I think the division's improved, Matt. I know we have this debate every year and stuff. I think the division's improved. So maybe that squad we might have done better in other seasons, but I'm not.
I think last season's was worse, squad-wise, than this. And I think the squad was worse when Carlos Corberán first took over as well.
Worse as in numbers or in certain, just in general?
I think in terms of numbers, it was poor. I remember if you go back to the start of that season, we had like Ben Jackson playing centre midfield, didn't we? And Critchlow playing centre back and things like that. I think at the start of that season, I think it got better as it went on, but at the start of that season, it was probably worse. And I think when we came up as well, we were a little bit ropey with Clark.
I think what's interesting though, Matt, I can't remember what it match of the day or someone coming out with something, but it was, I think it might have been Jonathan Pearce commentating yesterday in that Chelsea-Leicester game, but he says the best thing now why you're getting these games in the FA Cup where the Championship teams are giving it as good as they've got to the Premier League is because everyone wants to play football. And I'm laughing there thinking, Jonathan, I haven't watched Huddersfield Town anytime. Mind you, we might have done our game actually when we got battered, but at Man City. But it's a fair point that though, Matt, isn't it? I think that there's a lot of teams play a lot better football now than go on, you're going to shoot me down here, aren't you? But you know, people try and play the right way, and we've obviously well documented tonight, haven't we? Why we can't play any other way.
Well, Cosy, that's because we give them 70% possession, so when they're playing us, they get to play that way. Like we just give them the ball and just let them pass it about for fun. I think it's a fair point, though, Matt. I genuinely believe since the year we got relegated from the Premier League, our squad's got deteriorated. I think we've invested less comparatively when you look across the division. You can say, yeah, last year maybe, but I don't think we haven't been as weak as this attacking wise, and that's why we can't score goals. I think the statistics speak for themselves. We cannot play any other way than counter-attacking football, and it's worse now than it's been since relegation from the Premier League. And I'd find it quite hard to argue against that.
Okay, let's move on to the next one. Marcus Burler says, this crop of players has been in the relegation scrap for the past 2 seasons now. How much responsibility lies at their feet, or is this a case of mismanagement from the club with changing managers, etc., causing issues in the background? I mean, there's a lot of moving parts here, isn't there, on this? Because we've had, 6 managers in the last couple of years. I mean, you can throw more in for if you want to include the interims and the caretakers, etc. And they've only really played well. David Hartrick says this all the time, doesn't he? He says Town have only really played well for 5 weeks in the last 2 years. And he's right in terms of Town playing well. And that was under Neil Warnock. And I mean, every manager can't be crap. At some point, you've got to look at that. And I think part of the problem really is that Town, and it goes back to what you just said as well, every squad that we've assembled has been assembled since we've been relegated to the Premier League on such a shoestring. I mean, you even look at the Carlos Corberán season, we brought in Turton for free, Pearson for free. These guys aren't quality passing footballers. They're strong defensively, but they're not quality players. Tom Lee's for free, and he was only because someone else happened. I mean, Mikael Helik's a good signing. You know, that cost money. But the thing is as well is we've been saying for years and years and years, we've been saying we need a midfielder who can pass the ball. We've been saying this since Aaron Moy left. We had Carol Eiting for a little bit, and John Russell kind of did little bits, but I wouldn't say he was a great passer of a ball. But we've been, and I just think whoever's putting the squad together in the terms as either not had the tools at their disposal either, or has really struggled to understand what this squad needs. Because I think if you break this squad down with every player, I think a lot of these players get in other championship teams, but they only get in other championship teams because they'll have players around them making them better than what they are. Whereas in this particular squad, you've got no one who can pass the ball. You've got Jonathan Hogg in midfield who we're relying on to pass the ball. And years ago, he was the person that everybody wanted not to have the ball, which is crazy. But, you know, and Lewis O'Brien did a job whereby he carried the ball forward rather than us passing forward under Corberán. And there's certain things have never really been corrected. You know, the striker situation, we've gone out in January, we've tried to sign, well, we have signed strikers, but Healy's been injured and Radulovic hasn't worked out yet. Mostly because of, you know, maybe he hasn't played for months and it's coming to the hurly-burly of the championship. But again, do you then look at that? But there's no sort of like joined up thinking of the recruitment. But then again, you have to look at Lee Bromby's tenure as well. And Lee wanted to go sign Carlton Morris and Zian Fleming, and he was denied that to do so because the owner at the time wouldn't sign off on that. So and again, we're not going to get into semantics of why that is because, you know, obviously the money wasn't there for that. So I just think that we've put it together. We're constantly putting a squad together with everybody's last pick, if you like. So the squad just doesn't fit. And it's got to a stage now where the squad just doesn't really fit together. We couldn't really do much last summer because we were under financial FFI restrictions. And so in January, they've gone out and they've spent probably more money than they intended to do to try and fix issues with the squad. The mistake for me again is the lack of a passing midfielder, and that is just it's whether there wasn't one available, that's a possibility. Alex Matos I like a lot, but again, we've gone out, we just go out and we buy box-to-box midfielders who don't really specialize in either converting chances in the final third, either creating chances, or sitting in front of a back four and just mopping everything up. We just have people who can run from box to box and do little in either. And that for me is part of the issue, is that we really need now a chance. I really hope we stay up, because in the summer, we really need to go through that squad, root and branch, and say, right, he needs to go, he needs to go, he needs to go, he needs to go, he needs to go. And there can't be any of that. No more of the I don't really want to sound too harsh, but there can't be any more situations where we get to the end of the season and say, oh, he's done well the last 5-6 games, let's give him another 2 years. Because we're seeing people not, they get the new contract and then they go back to the status quo. I mean, Josh Ruffles has been injured, so you can't really say that about Josh Ruffles. Josh Koroma hasn't performed as well as what he should do this year compared to the end, but there have been moments where he has. And I mean, it just needs a clear out is what it needs, and it needs investment in the squad. And hopefully Kevin Nagel's willing to do that, and hopefully we stay up so we're allowed the chance to do that. Because if we go down to League One, then we're going to be buying League One players again, and that's what we've been doing for years. Next,
we've got to spend the money. It's got to spend the money, Matt. Just quickly there, though, attackers, fullbacks, because they're so important in today's game, aren't they? Fullbacks. That's where most chances kind of start now, by overlapping fullbacks in that area of the pitch, and they cost a lot of money, and we're not willing to spend it, or we haven't been willing to spend it, and you're left with a team full of cloggers. Is disrespectful, I wouldn't say that, but you've got solid Championship players like Mike Pearson, Tom Lees. They'll do a job, but they're never going to be worth 10 million quid. So no other clubs are really interested in him in that way, because they're not going to be worth that. Even Hellick, amazing goal scoring record he is. He's not the strongest centre defender when it comes to defending on the run backwards. He kind of loses his man a little bit that way. You can see his limitations, and that's why he's with us. That's why he was affordable for us. But if we wanted to go out and get a creative midfielder, Matt, from League One, what's that going to cost us? 3 million.
Well, there's Cameron Brannigan. It probably cost you $1.5 million, I reckon, something like that.
And that's more than what it seems like we've paid for anybody since when? When was the last time we spent that on a player?
I mean, Healy in January was over $1 million, wasn't he? But I don't think we'd have done that in the summer. This summer, I don't think we'd have paid that in this summer.
I think it was a desperation move. We wanted to go out and get impact players now, as the club said. We wanted guys to come in right now to save our season, because getting relegated to the League One is worth, between 7 and 10 million, apparently. You understand that gamble? We took it last year with Warnock, in that we offered him quite a lucrative contract to come in and save us, and it did, and it worked great. And I feel like we were pushed into Healy this year. But you've got to go out and spend the money to bring in the proven guys, and we just haven't done it. Look at the front three that we've got. Bergzorg on loan. Koroma should be in that front three for me. I think he's still one of the better ones. And did he come in on a free? Was it 100 grand or so? I can't actually remember, Matt.
Koroma was about 300 grand.
Okay, and Sorba Thomas, who came from Boreham Wood. We spent next to nothing on the initial outlay bar. Yeah. That's it, and that's what we've done, and that works every now and again. You keep going and going and going, but for every one that works, you get 2 that doesn't. And unfortunately, we're not in a financial situation where we've been able to do it, and we just don't have the players, because, Matt, like you said, we prefer to sign kind of those solid guys that we know will do a job. They've got a high floor, meaning that they're not going to be terrible and they won't do an awful job for us, but the ceiling's also quite limited. And over time, if you do that year in, year out, you eventually find yourself in a position like we're doing now, where we don't have many attackers that can kind of create moments that win games.
You've got to supplement those solid players with quality, and that's what we've not been doing. And it's partly because we've not had the money to do so, because of changing ownerships, etc. It's just what it is, isn't it? And unfortunately, Kevin Nagel's picked up a situation now where he's, and his staff have looked at the squad and gone, shit, we need to spend more money here than probably what they thought they'd have needed to do. And it's not enviable for them to come into that situation, because it goes throughout as well, because there's no academy either. So that's obviously going to need money spending at some point in terms of, young players as well. There's a lot to do. Let's move on. Liam Noble says, do you think the players have it in them mentally to avoid relegation? I think we've kind of already done this, haven't we? Plenty of this squad were here last year as well, when they did the impossible, and it should help us. Is it one time too far? We kind of covered that, Liam, I think, haven't we? Another one comes from Mr. Shanks. And he says, season tickets. Many bought this year's season ticket in good faith as we were promised one more year from Neil Warnock. He was promptly dumped after 8 weeks for whatever reason. Will supporters have the faith to renew after effectively being missold this season?
I think so. I think they will. I think Kevin Nagel, even Kevin Nagel's worst critics have been, nothing but kind of charmed with him, and I could get people shouting at me like, what are you on about? But I think Kevin Nagel, the way he's kind of conducted himself, and obviously splashed the cash in January to a certain extent, and talking positively about the future and stuff like that as well. Quite interesting on the other podcast the other week, they were, Dave, and he was kind of like, he talks a good game, he's saying this, saying that, but he really needs to deliver in the summer, and it's a big summer. So, yeah, I honestly, I know we always say this is the season where I'm not going to do it or whatever and stuff like that. So, but I think because it's all about, I suppose, how we finish, Matt, and obviously as well, if Breiter and Breiter can get a tune out of us, we stay up. Maybe one or two of the January guys kind of contribute to that as well. And Nagel's obviously coming back over here, isn't he, in a couple of weeks and that as well. So it's
boots on the ground.
Yeah, I do think people, I know it costs of living and stuff like that as well, but I do think people will stump up for it again. But again, cost, price and stuff. I mean, we've seen our friends down the M606 stick theirs up from, obviously they had ridiculous cheap prices. Obviously ours has been good as well. So I'm expecting some kind of a rise. But I don't know, I think the town fan base will, it all depends on how we finish though, Matt, doesn't it, and that as well. But even then, if we go and Nagel, obviously,
yeah, I mean,
the long haul, it's going to be interesting, mate, that's for sure.
I mean, the point was, I think, was around Neil Warnock, wasn't he? I mean, I think if we stay up, I don't think they're going to dump Breiter and Breiter after 8 weeks unless they back him and then we lose all the games. I don't think that'll
change. Jesus,
that'll happen. But I think at some point you've got to look at the players, haven't you, and realize that this is what 6 managers or 5 out or 7 out of 8, whatever it is, that they haven't played for, and at that point you've got to think, well, it can't be just the manager.
I know it's early, Matt, but I just feel that Breiter and Breiter's, like somewhere you think give him a chance or this time, but obviously he's not seen everyone. But I just feel that this is a man who obviously has made his decision clear with Matt's, but that has come to some conclusions early. So that gives me a bit of heart that he knows what we need as the song goes, and
well,
I think
if you listen to the We Are Terriers podcast, Dave Hartrick doesn't always let cats out of the bag. He's pretty much a cat catcher these days, and he keeps those pesky felines in the bag. But he did let it out about Matos about that. There's something tactical that Breiter and Breiter doesn't quite like about him, but they're working on it really hard in training to eradicate that. And
it's going to be a striker. It's coming back.
Could be. He used to be a winger. You never know. Right. Killer. One more year from Neil Warnock. Will supporters have faith to renew? I think it's down to price, don't you?
Has to be, doesn't it? I think everybody's expecting a rise. What have the club said too much? I was at the AT&T meeting the other day, and I kind of know a little bit, probably more than I'm allowed to share at this point. But I think it's pretty obvious that season ticket prices are likely to increase because everything's so expensive. But I just think a positive end to the season and make a big difference as well. I think can comfortably finish 19th. It'd change how we're going to go, but it does depend on it. If we're facing, who we're going to be facing next year: Bolton, Barnsley, Peterborough, Charlton, Burton, Stevenage. Is that where we're at?
Maybe not.
Well, that's it. We don't know. And I think, and it's a dreg of a league to get out of it. I know it's a different kind of answer. I'm depressing myself here, even talking about. Look at that. I'll put myself off answering this question here, Matt. But it'll come down to how this season ends, because, like you say, because when people like that in the stadium on Saturday at Rotherham, then that kind of negativity kind of spreads a little bit, doesn't it? And
Cambridge.
Cheers, Cozzy.
I think they've missed a bit of a trick. They missed a bit of a trick not getting out already as well. I think the season ticket should have been out weeks ago, and I think people might have been inclined to renew them, but I mean, they've got to have a look at things. Yeah, well,
Vale, I know they're going. Jeez,
well, some people will be upset, won't they? Right. Do you know what, Cozzy? I think you like more than anything, and it is a new feature. And a new feature sprung on you is always one of your favorites. And do you know what? I thought this week I've been meaning to do something of a similar thing or a similar vein, and I've brought in this new feature.
When are we going to hold this bold man responsible?
There we go. It's Cozzy versus the world. Okay, so what I thought we could do. So
I'm not. By the way, I don't have a clue what this is, so don't think anyone thinks I know.
Right. What I have down here in my magic box is a couple of years ago, I was sent this board game called Pundit by somebody looking to for me to essentially just tweet a load of stuff about Pundit, and I forgot completely that they'd sent me this as a freebie. This is something, Cozzy, that they tried to get us to go to the box in Leeds during the day one to play it with a load of chesties, and I said no. So essentially, Pundit is a board game, but I thought what we can do is you get a number of questions here, and we could have a little quiz where Cozzy takes on whoever the guest is. And this week is Mr. Kilroy Silk. And I thought what we would do is we would let Killer pick the topic. So what you get is you get a box here of Italian questions. So questions on Italian football, Euros, Cozzy's favorite, Spain, England in the 2010s, England in the 1990s, German football, World Cup, Champions League, England in the noughts, and the England national team. What do you fancy?
German. Was German a topic there? Because he also loves German football, doesn't he?
Germany was, yes. So you want to go German football?
I'm going for a 0-0 draw here, Matt. This is my Darren Moore approach. I think the best option I've got, having been away from European football for so long, is to hope I can just negatively set up with a back five and see if Cozzy can struggle to break me down in this.
It's a bold move. I'll give you that.
It's a bold strategy. Come on, Matt.
Right. Okay. So what we'll do is we'll go with 5 questions each. Should we do 5 or 3? We'll see how it goes. 5 questions each. You can either have an easy one or a hard one. You get 1 point for an easy one or two for a hard one. Who goes first? We'll go with Cozzy. You can go first, seeing as our Killer.
Easy. Let's get an easy one, Matt.
You're gonna get an easy one, right? Yeah. Question 1. What's this? Easy. Yep. Easy question. This long-time midfield general with both Bayern Munich and the German national team won the treble with Bayern and was voted German Player of the Year in 2013. Bayern got off to a great start to the 2012-2013 season, including a win against Stuttgart in round 2, in which this midfielder got his name on the score sheet. The question is, who is that midfielder?
Is it A? Oh, no, we're not going near that. So 11-year-old Bayern midfielder. Jeez. I think Lothar Matthäus were long retired before that, so that ain't him.
Lothar Matthäus retired in the 90s, mate. This is like almost 20 years after. He'd have been like 50-odd-year-old. So the rest of that Bundesliga team was Manuel Neuer, Jerome Boateng, Dante, Philipp Lahm, Holger Badstuber, Luis Gustavo, Toni Kroos, Thomas Muller, Frank Ribéry, and up front was Mario Mandzukic. So who is the missing midfielder? Killer knows who it is. He's got this grin on his face.
I'm guessing. I don't know if he'd retired at that point, but there's only one.
Going to give you a couple of seconds, Mr. Kosmala.
I'm done, mate. The easy question has got me, man.
Killer, I'll throw it over to you for a point.
No, I'm going to Michael Ballack, but he'd probably retired by then. I don't know if
it's not Michael Ballack. The answer is Bastian Schweinsteiger.
Didn't you just read it out then, Matt? I thought he did put there. Well,
I feel like we should have had a repick on topics. Yeah, we should have had a re-go on topics, Matt. He started bringing a new system in, going Pundit. But easy questions are quite relative. And 2013 German football, especially a game, Matt, that came out how many years ago? Was this board game?
2 years ago. Right, I think you've had a stinker here as well. Easy or hard, Killer?
Easy. There's no way I'm going hard on these ones.
This goalkeeper earned the nickname of Der Titan for his formidable shot-stopping abilities, despite his questionable choice of hairstyle. He was a regular for Munich between 1994 and 2008, played his part in countless memorable moments, such as the final match of the 2000-2001 season, when Patrick Anderson scored in the final seconds against Hamburger to win the league for Bayern. Who is that goalkeeper? Even I know this one.
I know it.
Go on, I've got no idea. This is where my knowledge is on that.
Go on, Cos.
Oliver Kahn.
1-0 to the Bear.
Hey.
Right, Cosy, easy or hard?
Gonna go hard, mate. Pardon.
This central defender became the first Belgian to win the Champions League in 2013. No stranger to lifting silverware, he won the German double 4 times with Bayern. He's got 83 caps for Belgium. In his senior career, he made 158 appearances for Bayern, 61 for Hamburger, spent five games on loan at Man City, 76 at Marseille, 57 at Standard Liège, and 19 appearances for Charleroi.
I should just get this really, but so Belgian centre back.
Tell you what, can't see you. Go on, Cosy.
It's got me, Matt. Should be getting that.
Kilroy Silk.
Oh, cool. I'm going to pick that.
Daniel Van Buyten.
Yeah.
Easy or hard, Killer?
Easy. I'm going to try and drag this one back.
This East German won the Ballon d'Or in 1996 due to his formidable displays as Dortmund's sweeper. Not only did he help Germany win the Euro 96, but his performances earned him the Player of the Tournament accolade too in 95. Dortmund won its first Bundesliga title since 1963, with the defender playing a key role in Hitzfeld's side. Hitzfeld, even. They would repeat their success the following season before conquering Europe by winning the Champions League in 97 after his playing days. He became the sporting director at Bayern. Who is it?
Matthias? Is it Matthias on that one?
Probably not.
No idea.
I know it is.
Go on.
Bear Grylls.
What did you say, Dortmund guy?
Yep.
Yeah.
Big blondie, big blonde ginger guy. No, it's Matthias Sammer.
Yeah.
Right, question 3. Mr. Kosmar, German football. Do you want easy or hard?
I'm going to go easy. Just try and get a 2-0 lead so I can at least get a draw. Like Darren Moore, be proud of me.
Okay. This midfield general made Kicker's Bundesliga team of the season 7 times. He was an aggressive player as reflected by the 109 yellow cards he received during his time at Bayern. Der Tiger was as fiery off the pitch as he was on it, so it was no surprise that his autobiography created a lot of headlines in Germany upon its release. Senior career, he played for Al Arabi, Wolfsburg, Bayern Munich, Borussia Mönchengladbach, Fiorentina, Bayern Munich, and Mönchengladbach again. And he's got 35 caps for Germany. I think I know who this is.
Is it what they say? Midfielder, did it say?
Yeah.
Is that what you're struggling, Cosy? If he's a midfielder, this is an easy question. And
the worst quiz
does he play football?
Oh God, we've said Lothar about 18 times. I'm going to pass it before I'm in so much numpty.
Go on, kill it.
Oh, as if I'm going to have an idea on this one, Matt.
I know this is.
Because you've got the card in your hand, Matt.
I knew it. I thought he played for Spurs as well, but apparently not. Is it a pass?
It's a pass. It's a hard pass.
Stefan Effenberg. Right. Killer. Question 3. Easy or hard?
Easy. Again, I wasn't saying for a 0-0 draw. If I can blag this one, it might be my biggest achievement today.
Because he snaffled a goal, though, didn't he? Right.
Yeah.
This precocious talent became the youngest ever player in the Bundesliga when he made his debut for Dortmund at the tender age of only 16 years and 334 days. He went on to become the youngest goal scorer in Germany's top flight in November 2005, a record that stood until June 2020 when Florian Wirtz scored for Leverkusen. He started at Dortmund before moving to Feyenoord on loan, played for Real Madrid for 3 years from 2011 to 2014, but only played 4 times. Went to Liverpool on loan in 2013, Dortmund on loan 2014, played for Dortmund again for another 4 years, Werder Bremen, and Antalyaspor, and he's got 52 caps for Turkey.
I ain't got a clue on this, but honestly, I was getting giddy at Jadon Sancho there for a second. You know, I thought, oh, do you know what? I might be able to think this because I know he started pretty young, but no.
Not in 2005, he didn't.
No, that's what. Well, he'd have been 4 at that point, so it'd have been quite amazing if he could have managed it at that point. But no.
Yeah, this is one. If you've played Football Manager, you'll know who he is, but wouldn't if you haven't.
What was he, Matt? A midfielder?
Yep, Turkish.
Turkish midfielder. Not Mesut Ozil, is it? No.
No, Killer.
The only thing, I don't know. Football Manager midfielders. You got Besturk, and that's about it. But I think he's. Were he Turkish? I don't even know. I ain't got a clue.
No, both give up.
Yeah.
Nuri Sahin.
Okay.
The famous.
Kozi, are you going easy or hard? I don't think it really matters at this stage, does it?
No, hard. Let's go. Let's get 3-0 up.
Kozi. This versatile left back and midfielder was the first German to win the Gerendoro, given to Serie A's Player of the Year in 1989. Oh, I know who this is. His performances for West Germany earned him a spot in the team of the tournament at the Euros in 88 and 92, as well as the World Cup in 1990. I know who this is. Senior career was Barmbek to Saarbrücken to Kaiserslautern, Bayern Munich, Inter Milan, Real Zaragoza, Kaiserslautern. And he finished in 1998. Who is it, Kozi? Is Kozi still alive? Is he moving?
It's not Andreas Bremer, is it? I don't know, mate.
It is Andreas Bremer. 2-0 to Kozi Bear.
He died last week, didn't he? Bless him.
Yeah, he did. That was going to be my hint.
Wow, what a good result, that. 3-0 up. Killer.
2-0. 2-0. Oh, no, yeah, it's 3-0.
I feel very young. I feel very young compared to the rest of you. That's all I'm saying.
There we go.
Easy or hard, Mr. Silk?
Easy. If that's 1989, how am I supposed to even get close to questioning that?
This probably isn't going to make much better for you. It's the Bundesliga team of the year 74-75, so it's not going to really help. Right, okay, so this striker's golden left foot helped him to 130 caps and 40... Oh, this is easy. 130 caps and 49 goals for Germany, even though he also carries Polish citizenship. At one point in time, his childhood club, FC Cologne, retired the number 10 shirt in his honour. He was part of the 2014 FA Cup winning Arsenal side that ended the Gunners' 9-year trophy drought. And he's the 3rd all-time top scorer in Germany. Come on, you got to know this.
I know.
He's gone! He's balled it and he's gone. He's logged off and he's gone.
On purpose.
Killer, you're back in the room. What is your answer?
I actually know this one. You know what?
He's got a restaurant chain in Germany and all. I'll add to it.
Is it?
A restaurant chain in Germany.
Podolski?
Yeah.
It is Lucas Podolski.
Oh, there we go. There we go. I'm about to quiz shark you here, Kozi.
He's got ball out of back of net. He's running back to centre spot and puts the ball down. He's ready for more, man.
Kozi, last question. Is it going to be easy or is it going to be hard?
What's the score, Matt? 3-1 in it.
3-1 to the Costmaster.
Yeah, I'll just I'll go hard to make it exciting. If I get it wrong, then Killer can equalise. We are easy. We are hard.
Hard. This attack-minded defender was hit hard by injuries during his career. He scored 7 league goals for Bayern in their 96-97 Bundesliga title-winning season. He also helped Germany to win Euro 96 before later in 2001 managing to win the FA Cup, League Cup, and UEFA Cup with Liverpool.
Oh, I think I know.
He played for Bayern, AC Milan, Middlesbrough, Liverpool, Tottenham, Borussia Mönchengladbach.
Christian Ziege.
It's Christian Ziege, and Kozi goes 5-1.
Just a showcase of Kozi, innit? Just a showcase of Kozi knowledge.
Yeah, this is what we agreed before you came on, Killer, but yeah, it's playing out well.
Killer.
On, consolation.
Consolation for you, easy or hard? You're 5-1 down. You can make it 5-2 or 5-3.
Harder, easier than easiest.
All right, do you know what? I'm going to go with a hard just because I want Kozi to be able to have a chance of answering this again. Because honestly, to be fair, Kozi, I thought we'd play this out. Modest. I love your modesty.
I know.
Right, here we go.
Broken clock strike twice a day, mate.
This attacking midfielder was one of the highest profile players in the Wolfsburg team that won the league in 2008-2009. He provided an incredible 20 assists for Edin Dzeko and Graffiti. And typically for this Bosnian, he scored and got an assist in this, the final round of that season. He began his career with Bayern and later played for clubs like Galatasaray and Dynamo Moscow.
Cozzy, you on it? Are you all over this?
I was thinking De Bruyne. Oh, no, I went to Wolfsburg a few weeks ago, but yeah, De Bruyne too early for him.
That's where I'd have been going until, but unless he's got Bosnian heritage, then I don't think we'd have got that one, Matt.
16 years ago, though.
Never heard of this guy. Never heard of this guy. Misimovic. Zejan Misimovic. Never heard of him.
Well, that concludes.
Final score. Cozzy 5, Silk 1. Cozzy versus the world. Cozzy goes 1-0 up.
When are we going to hold this bold man responsible?
That bold man indeed is responsible this week. Just to finally, we've been going on for over an hour and a half here. We've made this a bit of an international break special. So Andre Breitenreiter. So Killer, you mentioned we could do like a mini review, didn't you, of Breitenreiter's first 5 games and also the January signings as well. See how we think they're getting along. Do you want to kick us off for what you had in mind?
With 5 minutes, I think we could take about 5 episodes to go through all the January signings on one each. On Breitenreiter, where do you guys think he's at the moment? Like, we're 5 games in now. I think that's enough of kind of a litmus test to be able to see kind of how things are going, and if he's kind of what you expect, where it lines up with what you expected to what you're getting. And I mentioned earlier on the points per game kind of thing compared to Darren Moore, and I broke it down a little bit myself to see where we're at, because just to me, as an eye test, Town under Johnny Worthington, obviously there were huge difficulties in the we could press high, but we were going to get caught on the break and stuff. But we played quite a refreshing way, and Breitenreiter came in saying, "Yeah, that's kind of it's working. I'm not going to change it too much." And between all of us, I genuinely believe he's changed pretty much everything with the way we're playing now, and we're trying to play. And I expected more at this point. I kind of thought he'd be feeling his way into performing and feeling his way into seeing how the Town players can kind of play. And all I'm seeing at the moment is he seems to have a very strong mindset in that he wants players to be able to do the jobs he wants them to do. And if they can't, they're not going to be a part of his team. And this kind of close shot kind of mentality is just kind of hampering and hurting us a little bit. And we're getting back to a point now where we've got fewer options than we had under Johnny Worthington just 6 games ago. And now I was the biggest champion of Breitenreiter when he came and looking at his CV. He looks fantastic, absolutely. But seeing the way we're playing now and seeing the way we've played against Rotherham, I can't sit here and say it's progressive. It feels like we're kind of it's like some sort of devolution back to what we were before John Worthington stepped in for those few games. I understand the limitations we're facing and that teams can understand how we're going to play now, so can counter that a little bit. But I expected more at this point. And I think it goes back to the question earlier on, Matt, of where do you feel like we're safe, or do you feel like you were okay a few games ago, now you're shitting it, or we're going to be okay and whatnot. I think it's kind of tough to separate those questions apart, but he's trending at the moment towards Darren Moore's tenure over Town. So whether, like you say, Matt, is it the squad itself causing that or whatnot? But I just expected to see more at this point than what we've got.
Cozzy?
Yeah, I think the big thing for me is I didn't see the Cardiff game at all. So I think obviously everything I read with that, we were pretty abysmal. So I'm kind of taking that out of my kind of summary really in that as well. So I'm kind of going on as low moments really being the second half against West Brom and obviously Saturday's post showing at the New York. But yeah, it feels like to me, again, it's just a gut feel that he's kind of made up his mind on certain players, which, you know what, I think maybe it's a good thing, but maybe it's not. We haven't seen much of Ben Jackson under, on Andre as well. And obviously he's been hamstrung, with injury. I do like the fact, though, that he has, he's giving guys like 15 minutes like Radulovic, but why should he just be playing everyone in that as well? If it's his ideas and it's his, team and even though a lot of people are getting frustrated, it seems to be like that is approach. But yeah, the only thing in the back of my mind, just kind of like, you know, kind of point. It's happy with the point on Saturday, and it could be a good point in that as well. It's yeah, it's just like mixed bag, Matt, for me, mate. It's just like when I get my pick and mix, you get a scoop of this and a scoop of that, and some's better than the others and that as well. But yeah, loads of people said to me, Matt, that it's easy to say that when John Worthington did what he did, because like you said, it was like revolutionary really compared to what we've seen, like the way we were playing. But and people saying if we'd have kept Worthy on, we'd have had more points and stuff like that as well. But I find it hard to argue against that a little bit in the last couple of games and that as well. But yeah, I'm just one of those, Matt. If we go, we've got to stick with the guy. I think I do think there's kind of some substance to what he was saying, kind of Leon Wobsall, with the in regards to that just can't afford to lose psychologically. I think he knows we're mentally, fragile and that as well. So I can maybe, even if we didn't agree with it, I can maybe see why he did what he went on Saturday. But yeah, waffled like I usually do, Matt. But it's for
without answering the question.
Yeah, people call me Brighton shouting on Saturday. I think that would poor form really in that as well. So I can't see how someone's gone from Leeds United to be the next Pep Guardiola to to be Darren Moore 3 games later and that as well. But I can't say enough how much that Cardiff game might have swayed me differently, because everyone else who's watched it said we were atrocious and it hadn't really picked up from then as well, mate. But it's
it was crap, but we should have drawn.
Yeah, it's got the CV and stuff in the book, but my beefs with a group of players, as you've seen a lot of my tweets at the moment, Matt, and that's my frustration rather than, I got a lot of backing on that tweet on Saturday night, and that's when I think a lot of people are saying, but it's like, look, instead of bagging the manager, look at what he's got at his disposal. So to me, it's, I'm not bothered about, obviously, to me, I mean, we want to see progressive football or whatever, but again, we've got to this stage now when we come back after Easter, mate. To me, I couldn't care less about progressive football. I just want to be above that dotted line, and yeah, we go again. I just think it could be a bright future under him, Matt. If we can stay up, because I think he kind of is good at obviously experiencing the game. I think he's assessed stuff pretty quickly, and obviously that Matt's thing was interesting. What Dave's saying about kind of trying to tactically change him and won't just throw him in when God everyone else is like, well, it's like he's been our best player like for a few weeks. We were saying, weren't we, and that as well. So I kind of like all that stuff that seems to be going on in the background. But if we get to League One, mate, it's going to be he's going to be, regardless of people saying Darren Moore, he'll be the man who took us there, unfortunately. And that sounds a bit cruel when you consider probably Moore's tenure did a lot more than Brighton Writers. But at the end of the day, Moore left us outside of the bottom 3, and we're back in it now under Andre. So it's a brutal assessment, that. But
took us closer, though, didn't he? It took us a lot closer to it.
Yeah.
I think if I look at it, I'm also on board the players issue. I think first 2 games he was good. I thought the Watford game, and he made substitutions which worked, and we were hoping he was going to be a lucky manager. The Leeds game was good. I think the Cardiff game was a tired performance. West Brom was good first half. Second half was bad. Again, players, I thought they mentally they just kind of fell apart when West Brom scored. And then against Rotherham, again it sort of carried on, hasn't it? And they seem a bit fragile. At this point, it's down to him to sort of settle their nerves, if you like, and just bring the group calmer. He's not going to be able to get them to pass a football like we want them to in over the next 2 weeks. But so he's got to find a way of making things work. I like him. I like what I've seen so far. I think maybe I'd like to see him switch to a 4-3-3. I don't think Redoni plays well at 10. I don't like 2 wingers up front. I think what I would like to see, and this might be a little bit radical, and it's just about trying to find something which just works temporarily. Like when Neil Warnock found Romani Edmonds-Green, sticking him in front of the back 4 just seemed to work for him. He found 1 or 2 little things. And I think for me, the change I would make is Radinho Balca. I'd probably put him in front of the back 4, because he's literally the only player left fit that can pass a football. And then off the ball, he can drop into the back line, and you can have like that Carlos Corberan type setup where it's like a back 5. You got Brody at right back and Headley maybe at left back, and you've got that 5. But then in possession, he steps out into midfield, and he's the one who can actually slide the ball through and improve those progressive passes. And you need Redoni as more of an 8, so he can work from deeper rather than in the final third, where he tends to be a bit of a jigsaw sometimes. And then partnering him, you'd probably still stick Hogg in there because you need your leaders. You need as many leaders as possible on the pitch, and Hoggy, for all his faults, and I know we say he doesn't help us with on the ball at times and space and pace off it, but in terms of being a leader and dragging you through tough spells in games, Jonathan Hogg's good at that. And then up front, you could have Sorba wide right, Bergzorg wide left, and then either Healy, Ward, Karoma, whatever in the central, whoever's playing well at that point, or whoever's fit. That's probably what I'd do, and I think I want to see him maybe come up with something to so where I'm at is I want him to sort of earn his money in the terms of he looks at these players over the next 2 weeks, and I want him to say, right, this guy could change something by doing this, and this guy can change something by doing that. Because I always felt that once we got rid of Darren Moore, there would be a temporary upturn. That tends to be what happens when players don't like a manager. They do tend to play quite well for 2 or 3 weeks, and then they tend to dip back. So I don't really subscribe to as we'd have been further up with Johnny Worthington as head coach. We could have been, you never know, but I just always felt that the players were going to dip again, and they have, and it's now up to Andrew Breiter now to show whether he's good enough to then get us on the up curve again. And I really hope he is. It makes a lot of sense when he speaks. Everything about him makes a lot of sense, but we've got to see him lift the players now and just take that edge off, take the pressure off. And if we can get 2 or 3 points at Easter, then I think we might be in a good position going into April. So that's my thought on that. January signings very quickly. Shall we count Brodie Spencer? He's been called up to the Northern Ireland squad, hasn't he, Cozzy? He's been great since he's come back. I think he's dipped a little bit, but I think this is the problem with young players. They do dip, and it's about knowing when to take them back out again and to put them back in. And I just feel Brodie's probably been a bit overplayed since he's come back, and he's been played all over the place as well. He's played left back, he's played centre back, right back, left wing back, right wing back. You might as well put him in goal because he's played pretty much everywhere else, hasn't he? So I think maybe he's due a rest, and he's got it with international break. And he obviously went off injured, so it's going to be interesting to see whether he does go in Northern Ireland, because he seemed to be in a bit of pain, didn't he, when he went off after that game. For me, he's a massive plus point of January that he came back, but can't really. Matos, I like a lot. I understand the tactical issue, but I think he'll be back in sooner rather than later, because I do really like Matos. And when you talk about that 4-3-3, I would be looking Matos or Hogg in that role. And Kasumu has to drop out for me as well at a certain point. Or it's just, or maybe you can alternate it depending on who you play against. If you're up against a stronger team, you can have Matos instead of Radoni. Maybe Radoni can play one of the wide slots. There's options. Radulovic for me, the problem with Radulovic is he's quite slender, shall we say, and he looked really good the first 2 games. His touch is really good. I don't think that's ever in doubt. He just looks like he can be bullied a bit, and you don't really want that from a target man in English football. Healy looked like he wasn't quite as quick as what he used to be, and then he popped his hamstring. Again, could just be game time, just needing to bring up to date, or it could be the effects of an ACL injury, and he may have to reinvent himself a little bit. But he's that sort of archetype, fox in the box type, isn't he? He's good in the box, and someone like him against Rotherham, and I think we win the game. So I think potentially he could be quite good from now to the end of the season. Either way, if we go down, he'll be good in League One, and if we stay up, I think he'll be a decent bench option next year. So not going to write Healy off at all. Balker I really like, but again, fitness has been an issue. But I think there are some issues with crosses into the box with Balker sometimes, but I like what I've seen of Balker so far. I think that's a good player and potentially a good sign. I think once he acclimatizes to what's required in English football, I think he's going to be good. I'd like to see him maybe start at 6 next time. But that's my little roundup, Killer. What about you?
Now, Balker's great. I think he's only played, funnily enough, up until this point, 356 minutes out of about 1,100, 1,200 minutes possible since they've signed. So he's actually not been available very much, has he? Because he was ill, I think, twice. Was he ill twice? Injured once. Yeah. But in his 4 starts for Town, amazingly, we've kept 3 clean sheets, which I didn't think I think that's probably the best stat you'll get, positive stat for Town you'll get all season. He started against Sheffield Wednesday, Sunderland, Rotherham, obviously, and started against Hull in the 2-1 defeat. But he looks a little bit weak in the air just yet, like you say, Matt, from the crosses. But I think that's learning the Championship game. Maybe he'll adapt to that. But then, like you say, Matt, he's good passing the ball out. He's good driving it forward, and that's probably because he's a little bit slighter. Maybe not in height, but in stature, he's a little bit more agile, isn't he, than a lot of centre backs that you seem to get. And he can pass the ball. He looks like a wonderful signing. I think Brodie Spencer, I would count him as a new signing. I would. It's a bit like when Jack Hunt came back. I've mentioned that before. That's how I feel like when he plays now. He's played nearly 97% of some of the minutes possible since he's come back to start for Town, and more or less he's not quite the first name on the team sheet, but he's not far off it. You're right, Matt. I think teams are now learning what he can offer Town, so kind of are targeting him in a different way. But the best thing with Brodie Spencer for me is that you can see him adapt and get better game by game. And if in the first 25, 30 minutes he's faced with a certain type of challenge, he adapts his game and makes up for it. He's not been bad for a full game yet, in my opinion. And he looks like, to me, he's going to be a fullback we're going to have for quite a while at Huddersfield Town. And as a starter, because he's that good. Healy, you kind of knew what you're getting with him. He's done his cruciate ligaments twice, I think, in the last 4 years. That's probably why he's here with us. He didn't play very much at Watford, obviously, beforehand, so he was available for us. No match fitness, really, because he hadn't played, and getting match fit for us, he's injured again, and that's just kind of what you get with strikers like that. You can accept that. Radulovic was never going to be a guy that came in and impact straight away, because he's played in a division that's so lower quality and physicality than the English Championship, and he's not a fast guy and he's not a tall guy. You can kind of have one of those two things and get around maybe the other aspects of it, but he's not that kind of striker. Maybe there is a good striker in there, but it's not yet. He's certainly not that impact signing that we're told he was, or the club might have expected him to be. He's not quite there just yet. Alex Matos looks fantastic off the ball. Like when he's pressing, he's tactical. I think what you mentioned about heart trick, to me, what I think people are referring to with Alex Matos is, whilst he's good at pressing, he's kind of got a lack of discipline maybe in regards to tracking runners behind him and marking off the ball. A lot of goals against Town at the moment, if you watch how teams try and attack us, and this is late in the podcast to bring this moment up, but they like to go down the wings and pull the ball back to the penalty spot. And that's because our centre-backs are terrified of conceding goals. And that sounds kind of stupid because you think all centre-backs will be, but they're not. They all go to the goal line to stop a shot. And it means when you pull the ball back to the centre, to the penalty spot, your centre midfielders are the guys that should be marking those men. If you just count how many goals Town concede by that kind of action, it's on the back of Johnny Ogg and Alex Matos for a few games, not picking up those late runners into the box. And I think that's what Brighton Wright is not. I'm guessing that's kind of what he's not really happy with. He's got 2 weeks on him now to work with him. And I expect to see a very different Town when it comes to all kind of aspects going to the Coventry City game. But January was very much hitting this one. And it usually is. It usually is. But realistically, I think we've only really got Brodie Spencer as of now, who's come in or come back in January, that are kind of that bona fide starter. And I've got to hope the club expected more at this point, because what are we, halfway through now from January to the end of the season? So there's only another 8 games for these guys to make the impact we wanted them to have. And as of yet, bar Brodie Spencer and maybe Bolker in those 4 games that he started, the other guys have not quite hit the mark, really, unless you count Matos. But Brighton Wright doesn't really seem to see that at the moment.
Cozzy, do you want to round it up?
Not a lot to add really to that, mate, but Killer kind of touched on it at the end, just the impact really in that as well. I think we've discussed it obviously earlier on about you're not going to get ready-made quality, just ready to go for Huddersfield Town, so you need it. And, probably Matos is the only one that's really shown more than anyone. And obviously he's on the periphery now and that as well. So obviously Kevin Nagel's just done as is being told by Mr. Cartwright and given the money and in trust, but they might be good in moving forward, but unfortunately the Hawkeyes have got to deliver, haven't they, in the next few games. I'm really hoping that Healy can do that. But again, it's a huge ask in it with that kind of injury he had and that as well. Should we just get used to it as Town fans though, and that as well, innit? We're always going to be shopping at these kind of places and immediate impact. It just shows what can be done with Brodie Spencer. Part of me thinks it sounds a bit cruel, this really, but because the bar was so low, what it really had to look anything better. But to be fair, I think Brody's performances speak for themselves. But yeah, as much as Radulovic might need a pre-season, I keep hearing the excuses wheeled out for these guys: pre-season this and pre-season that. And here, I laughed on the other podcast that says, when you're doing crap, you always didn't national breaks come at a great time because we get on the training ground and blah blah blah. Where like Daniel Farke will be like, bloody hell, no, don't have any injuries and stuff. Where like you just cling on to out, don't you, depending on how your team's doing. But yeah, for me, they've not had the impact they wanted. But again, when we signed them all, I'm just thinking I were pleased with what they've got. But again, there were question marks over them all because if they won't be able to show time, mate.
I think Radulovic, I think the preseason thing's true for him. I think if anyone just needs.
Falk writing him off, Matt, but can you imagine Banks winning at Stoke? He'll be a legend, mate, all of a sudden.
Yeah.
So wouldn't take much to change it around. No,
I think he just needs a bit of acclimatizing. I think a good preseason and a referral code for myprotein.co.uk, and I think he'll be fairly decent. But I think that's it for us this week. We've rambled on for coming up to 2 hours.
5 hours later.
Yeah, it's a good job there's not another podcast for 2 weeks because I think people will need that time to get through this shite that we've just done. So thanks to everyone for listening. Fortunately, there's only around about 8 of these left before the end of the season. So there's respite for you, and we'll see what happens after that. So thanks, Cozzy. Thanks, Killer. Thanks to Magic Rock for sponsoring us. And thanks for you guys for listening.
There's a team that is dear to its followers. The colours are bright blue and white. They're a team of renown, and they're the pride of the town. And the game of football is their delight. And all the while upon the field of play, thousands loudly cheer them on the way. Often you can hear them say, who can beat the town today? And then the bells will ring so merrily, and every goal shall be a memory. So town, play up and bring that cup back to Huddersfield. So town, play up and bring the cup back to Huddersfield.